Today, we're going to be talking about working with buyers. And the good news is that buyers often lead new agents to faster commission checks. And quite often, a new associate's first sale is with a buyer rather than with a listing. The bad news is that buyers can take exponentially more time than listings. And top agents, as we'll talk about over this entire Quick Start program, tend to gravitate towards spending more time on listings than on buyers. A good balance might be spending 60% of your time with listings and 40% of your time with buyers. But let's start by defining a buyer. A buyer is a customer who's financially capable of purchasing a property, willing to look at homes using our systems, and committed to purchasing through you. Now, why is that important for me to define that? Because as you begin your journey into real estate, you're going to find that there are clients who will bruise and abuse you. And I want to help keep that from happening. There are people who will call and want to look at homes, but they don't really qualify to buy. They aren't bad people. They're just dreamers. And in many cases, they waste your precious time, your gas, and sap your energy running from place to place to place without the serious intention of purchasing. You're also going to find people who are serious about buying. They really want to, but are looking with several agents at the same time. And ultimately, they make an offer through someone else. So you want to work with those people who are serious buyers, are qualified buyers, and really are willing to work exclusively with you. And it's important to realize also that most buyers spend a lot of time searching for the perfect home online. Most buyers. However, most buyers do end up working with an agent to represent them. They take about 8 weeks to search for homes, of which about 5 weeks is looking at properties. And the average buyer looks at 9 homes before purchasing one. That goes up and down every year a little bit, but that's fairly common. This is from the National Association of Realtors Statistics. What this means is that 20 years ago, buyers came in and shopped for homes, and we found them the perfect home using the MLS and using our search tools. Now buyers shop online, but they turn to a professional to help them put together that sale on their dream home and step through the process of paperwork, negotiation, inspections, mortgages, and settlement. The average buyer spends 4 to 5 months until they settle on their home. They start searching online, begin working with an agent to see homes, and then write an offer and close on that home 4 to 6 weeks after writing that offer. Again, part of the challenge we deal with is the fact that buyers do take a significant amount of time, but often that leads to quicker commissions, and they're a great source of referrals. They're happy, they bought a house, they found their dream, they're happy. In other training, you might also hear the term that buyers are liars. A lot of trainers say that. That isn't exactly true. Too often, buyers don't understand how we're paid. Some of them think we're salaried by our companies, as Century 21 pays us to drive buyers around. And when they go to an open house and panic and write an offer with the agent who's hosting that open house, we've wasted a lot of time and energy. So we have to work toward getting a commitment from them and make sure that they understand the process, why they need to work with us. First thing here on the 5 attitudes of a balanced agent is that time is money. So you don't want to show a buyer every single home in a region or every single home in a price range, because you'll find that some buyers will look at absolutely anything, despite the fact that they'll never, ever, ever buy a particular home because it doesn't have 4 bedrooms or because it's not the right school district, but they'll still look at it. You have to narrow it to what works for them. You need to set expectations up front on how you're going to work with buyers. You need to clarify what a buyer wants and needs and focus on those homes that meet the buyer's needs. Well-balanced agents know that the more questions they ask, the more clarity they'll get, and the more success they'll have in moving their buyers toward the finish line of buying the perfect property for them. Urgency is of the essence. Whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, buyers need to make quick, well-informed decisions in order to avoid losing that perfect home. If buyers dally too long, they tend to lose. And focus on the one. Top agents leverage technology and scripts to make sure that buyers and agents don't waste their time on properties that are not going to work for them. And when they find a home that fits, they help buyers to switch from searching to purchasing. Agents who work with buyers don't see problems, but rather opportunities or solutions to help them get to their ultimate goal. Now, this is an outline of the buyer path. Pre-consultation, conducting a buyer consultation, a buyer interview, a buyer presentation, finding and showing homes, putting together a contract, and then hopefully building clients for life. Pre-consultation is pre-qualifying the buyer and starting the process by gathering all the information you need from a buyer questionnaire that's in your workbook. This will help you tailor your buyer consultation to meet your buyer's needs. And a lot of this can be done on the phone when you're doing your initial interview with them. Then you conduct a buyer consultation, preferably in person. Position your professionalism and share your knowledge and expertise in finding the right homes while leading the way in the buying process for clients and getting the buyer representation agreement or buyer agency documentation signed. And then find and show homes. Know the buyer, excuse me. Find and show homes. Know the buyer's needs and wants, communicate, be proactive, and work with them to find the home of their dreams. And then contract close. Proactively guide the transaction to a successful close. When you put an agreement together, you're going to have inspections, appraisals, and negotiations. And then client for life. Build on your success to maintain a relationship with your buyer. Ask for testimonials and ask for referrals for future business, because that's where your business comes from in the long run. So let's step through these 5 spots. Part 1 is pre-consultation. It's about setting yourself up for a successful buyer consultation or buyer agency presentation by gathering information and positioning yourself. Why do pre-consultations matter? Now, again, buyer may have called in on the phone. You may have given them some information, and you may be setting up an appointment. You want to do a pre-consultation to ensure that you've got a viable opportunity in that buyer, that you're not wasting your time, that you're not setting yourself up to be bruised and abused. Knowledge is power. Learn each buyer's individual situation before you meet with them so you can tailor your buyer consultation to fit their needs and their wants. The more you know, the further they can go. You'll be fully prepared to guide them to an informed decision on one of the most important financial transactions of their entire life. And not all buyer motivations are the same. Make sure the buyer is serious about buying a home. For instance, have they been pre-approved by a lender yet? What's their motivation for looking for a home? How long have they been looking? And if they won't be ready to sign up for a long time, then your commission check is a long way off too. You need to decide if and when they are worth your time and effort to show them properties. Now, at the beginning of your career, you're going to be showing houses to a lot of people. But in the long run, as you get more and more clients, you're going to have to narrow your focus down to the ones who are going to be serious and qualified. And no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. By taking the time to speak with a buyer before the appointment, you can build rapport and position yourself as a professional who cares and who's ready to listen to them. So goal number 1, the first goal of a pre-consultation is to build a rapport with the prospective buyer, asking great questions, resisting the urge to start talking and selling, responding briefly and appropriately. Oh, that's great. Oh, I understand. Of course. Listening attentively and taking notes, closing for the appointment by saying, well, why don't we meet briefly in my office? Top agents have also learned to resist the temptation of doing the buyer consultation over the phone, the selling buyer agency over the phone. They leverage any questions from the buyer to reiterate their value and professionalism and confirm the appointment. Let me go through an example. The buyer might say, we just saw a listing that popped up on Zillow that we'd like to that just came on the market. We want to see it right away. Can we meet you at the house? And our response would be, that's great. I'll be happy to look that up on the MLS for you. Give me a second. While I'm looking that up, what was it that attracted you to that home and location? Well, that's great. Can I get your name and number in case we get disconnected? Okay, thanks. Now you start sharing all the information from the MLS, confirm their interest in the house. Yes, we can definitely visit that home. And I'd also like to learn some more about what you're looking for and determine if there are any even better properties that might meet your needs, so we can see all your best matches before other buyers do. If you have a couple of minutes, why don't we meet in my office first so I can uncover all your wants and needs? Then I'll be able to pinpoint the best properties for you. Can we meet maybe at 5 this evening, or would 10 tomorrow morning be better? That's, by the way, called an alternative choice. It's not a yes or no. It's giving them a choice of times to meet. Top agents know that the information that they need to hear from the buyer in order to tailor their consultation to the buyer's wants and needs and win the business. As a rule, the key intel they're looking for falls into 2 buckets. One is information about the buyers themselves, and details about the right property is number 2. We have in your workbook a buyer questionnaire that's going to assist you in gathering both of those parts of information, both of those key intel areas that you need. So when the phone rings and the buyer asks you about a listing, be ready to gather as much intelligence as you can prior to setting up the buyer consultation. And the buyer questionnaire form, again, you're seeing on the screen, is also included in your Quick Start workbook. So you'll be able to make copies of it. You need to figure out if the buyers have been pre-qualified or pre-approved. You need to find out if they've been working with another agent. I can't tell you how often. Someone called to see homes for a weekend, and then sometimes after meeting and blowing an entire day or entire weekend, they tell us that they actually have an agent who's going to prepare an offer on the house we just showed them. But that agent was on vacation this week and the buyer didn't want to wait, so they called us. Don't we get paid to drive them around? You want to know if they have to sell a house in order to purchase. And of course, you want to know what they're looking for, what area they're looking for, what school district, what price range, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, and so on. These are all areas that we need to find out about in order to really help them. Number 3 is to set expectations. Let the buyer know what to expect, especially if they're a first-time home buyer, because they don't know. This is also an opportunity to establish your level of professionalism. Spell out the details of what's going to happen next and cover any outstanding questions that they might have. Now, during our pre-consultation, which is often talking on the phone, top agents ask open-ended questions to get the buyer to talk, to get the buyer to share as much information as possible. As they move to close for the appointment, they shift to asking yes-only questions to ensure that they convert the buyer to a consultation appointment. So again, would this evening at 5 be a good time to get together, or is tomorrow morning at 10 better? Again, that's called an alternative choice. Instead of saying, do you want to meet or not? Because they'll always say no, but rather, does this work or does that work better? And set the location. I always prefer to meet at the office, both for safety and for professionalism. If that doesn't work, you might use a coffee shop as a backup. It's best not to meet directly at the home they want to see first, because it means they're likely to be more focused on the home than working through your process, and they'll be less likely to commit to the process. What about objections that buyers have coming into the office? So a buyer might say, well, we'd really rather just meet you at the house. We don't want to come into the office. Okay, well, when you come into the office, I can share the tools we'll use to identify all the available properties that best meet your needs. And we'll get started on necessary process that'll save you so much time and make sure you're ready to submit a winning offer when you walk into the home and you just know that this is the one. So again, would it be good to get together at 5 tonight, or would Saturday morning be better? Evaluate then the buyer's readiness. You take action according to how motivated or ready that buyer is to purchase. You're going to find some buyers who are not really ready to buy. In that case, you can add them to your automated search, whether we're doing that through the multi-list or through Zap or through Moxie search. We reach out to them periodically to inform them of new listings, send them a little note, give them a call, and then add to a buyer relationship builder campaign. There are lots of campaigns built into our contact management software. Find one that sends them a periodic note as well. So we want to plug them into a system. You don't want to let them go. You want to plug them into a system. If they're moderately ready, if they're medium readiness, reach out periodically to inform them of new listings, give them a call every so often. And again, start a listing search, an automated search from the MLS or from Zap or from Moxie. And again, make sure to add them to a follow-up campaign, to a relationship builder campaign on the contact management software, and schedule a buyer consultation at a time that's convenient for you. But still try and meet in person if they're moderately ready. If they want to buy a house tomorrow, get them in to get a buyer consultation immediately. That is your only priority, is to meet with them and be able to go through the process of what you're going to be able to do to help them. Now, step 2 is the buyer consultation, or the buyer agency appointment, meeting with them in person and going through what you do. And this is critical. A meeting between the agent and the buyer prospect, in which the agent learns more about the buyer's needs, demonstrates their ability to best represent the buyer in the transaction, and hopefully closes for the buyer's commitment. Getting their commitment in writing is best. An exceptional buyer consultation helps you gather detailed information you need to successfully represent your client, sets the stage for an effective and efficient working relationship, and then turns that prospect into a client, somebody who's working with you. This is the moment where you demonstrate expertise. You position yourself as their trusted advisor, and you take the next step in creating a great working relationship and eventually a client for life that's going to refer you more and more business. According to the 2020 National Association of Realtors research report, 73% of buyers will only interview one agent. If you can be the first agent any potential buyer talks to, you are more likely to secure them as a buyer. And thanks to NAR's 2020 profile for home buyers and sellers, we know what buyers are looking for from most of their agents. And this is the list. 51% of them want help finding the right home. 13% want help negotiating the terms of the sale. 11% of buyers want help with price negotiations. What's it worth? And 8% want help with the paperwork. That's what's in their mind when they're calling a real estate agent. And we want to increase your odds of being successful as buyer, a great buyer consultation, not just showing them a house, then showing them another house, showing them another house, but instead getting them in, sitting down and trying to work through what you're going to do and how you're going to help them will absolutely exponentially increase your odds. It increases your odds by closing the buyer before they interview anyone else. You're delivering tangible evidence that you have the skills and the resources to accomplish what they want. And in the best buyer consultations, top agents that we've researched do their research and plan a scripted consultation to overcome objections before those objections arise. And I'm going to talk about this a lot throughout the Quick Start series, but you also use visuals and documentation designed to educate buyers. People remember what they see, not what they hear. That, by the way, is why we put stuff on a screen. And you're going to guide the buyer through powerful and impactful conversation that naturally concludes with getting the buyer's commitment in the form of a signed buyer agency agreement or buyer representation agreement when you possibly can. So when we're doing our buyer consultation, we're putting it into 4 buckets where we have 4 goals we want to accomplish in our buyer presentation, our buyer consultation. We want to set the stage and clarify what we know so far that we learned on the phone. We want to build trust. We want to present our value proposition and show the buyer that we really know the market, we've got mastery of the market, we can really help them. We want to define or explain our services and guide them through the process and what we expect if we're going to spend a lot of time and effort and energy and gas helping them. And then we're going to earn their business and close for a buyer commitment to work with us. So going through those 4 steps in a little bit more detail. Again, we're going to confirm and clarify what we learned on the phone or what we learned in that first showing, that pre-consultation. To get to the heart of what your buyer's looking for, use notes. Work from your buyer questionnaire that you already filled out, that you did when you were on the phone with them. Take notes. Write down what you hear. That underscores your level of interest. If you're sitting with them and you're writing notes that you're talking about, it shows them that you care about them and they're going to like you and they're going to trust you more if you're actually asking questions and writing something down. And it also forces you to listen intently and dig deeper. Ask questions and get to know your buyer's motivation by asking, why is that important to you? Well, I'd like to have 4 bedrooms. Oh, why is that important to you? I'd like to have a big yard. Why is it important to you? Never assume. If you aren't entirely clear about something a buyer is saying, ask for clarification and make it a dialogue. Take this time to build rapport by keeping the tone conversational, not interrogational. And a script might be like, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I want to thank you for letting me help you. My goal is to provide you with a superior customer service experience. To do that, I'd like to truly understand what you're looking for. So let's explore exactly what you want and need in your dream home. By taking the time to work through these questions, we won't waste any of your time looking at homes that won't meet your needs. So if it's okay, let's jump in. Again, a buyer questionnaire is in your quick start manual, but you might review those questions you ask the buyer on the phone and confirm their answers. So you said you were interested in the Parkland School District? Okay. And your time frame is you'd really like to be in a house before school starts at the end of August. Okay. Have you been pre-qualified or pre-approved by your lender yet? No, do you have a preferred lender at all? Because if not, I have a couple of them that I can give you that honestly can get you pre-approved in 15 or 20 minutes. And to be honest, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, most home sellers are not going to take their house off the market unless we have a pre-approval with the offer. So if you find that property that's the one, that's the perfect house, we want to make sure we have that. Now, you said your price range was 280 to 350, okay? And you're looking for 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and you'd love a study. Well, why is that important to you? Your preference is a ranch style house, okay? Why is that important to you? It's setting the stage. It's clarifying what you got in the pre-consultation and trying to get a little bit more. And the second goal of your buyer presentation, again, is to build trust. Before a buyer can commit to working with you, because they don't really know you unless they were referred to you, they have to first trust that you're the right agent for them. Present your value proposition for buyers. Simply telling buyers, I'm great, work with me, is not enough to build trust. Being able to share specific, measurable results from your business gives you the added proof you need to demonstrate why they should sign with you. And describe the tools you have available to help buyers find that one property that they really want. Explain your ability to negotiate the offer in their best interest and how you can help get them the closing, help them get that house that they want. And again, demonstrate your mastery of the market. Your professional opinion, backed by a thorough command of the facts, can help you win the buyer. Now, let me segue for a second and talk about the fact that throughout the quick start process, one of the things we're asking you to do is to go out and regularly preview homes. Why? Because you get an idea of what's happening in the marketplace. And over the next 2 weeks, we're going to actually have you build competitive market analyses on a few houses so that you have a better understanding of what a property is worth. You want to understand the market. So the more you understand it, the more you can talk about it with friends at parties, at get-togethers, in line at the checkout register, and with your buyers. So if you've got a good command of the facts, you can help win the buyer to work with you. However easy it may be for buyers to find properties online, they don't know what's happening in the market. They don't have comprehensive market insights that you can bring to the table to help them get their dream home. It's helpful to have the following information. You should know, and by the way, the market reports from the MLS have these, and if you don't have access, if you don't know how to get these, talk to your manager. What are the average days on market? How long are houses on the market before they sell? What's the average sales price to list price? In some markets, while I'm recording this, while I'm doing today's live event, we've run into areas where the average house is selling for more than the list price. Now, that's unusual, but it's a fairly hot market at the moment. However, you might have a buyer who comes in and says, I don't pay full price for anything. I'm going to offer 90% of the asking price. If the reality is that nothing sells at that, you won't know until you try it. If the average is a much higher number, you want them to be aware of that ahead of time. You want to give them the best information you can. You want to find out what the top factors are influencing supply and demand, what's happening in the marketplace. And you may also need what's called market stratification at supply and demand at different price bands. So what that means is the market may be crazy hot at 250,000 to 400,000. It may be slow at 50,000 to 100,000 or at 750,000 plus. So if you understand what parts of the market are shifting and moving, you can talk about that. And agents who can speak to these 4 factors can give an accurate snapshot of the impact of market conditions and what it'll have on the homes your buyers are interested in. So for example, you might say to your client, in this price range, homes priced right are taking only 37 days to sell, and sellers are actually getting 98.2% of asking price on average. The demand at your $350,000 price point is very high. So it's only the very overpriced homes that are sitting on the market for long periods of time. So in that price range, 325 to 400,000, the homes that you're going to be looking at are selling really, really fast. So don't be surprised if it takes less time or more time to find the right one. And if you find the right one, you've got to be prepared to jump on it because houses are moving very, very quickly. And you want to get the facts. So for example, if you've got a buyer who's looking to buy a home in the $500,000 to $550,000 price range, and you know that before you meet with them, try and find out what the days on market are for that price range, what is influencing the supply and demand in that price range, what the average sales price to list price ratio is, and what's happening at that price point. Those will definitely help. And this is an example of a table that you might see if you're putting something together. The number of days on market might be getting higher as you get higher in price. The list to sale ratio might be going down. Maybe everything's selling under 450 at 98% list price, 98% of list price. And there are only 34 homes in the market. But as you get up to 550, there's almost 90 homes in the market, and they're selling for about 6% off list price. And they're taking about 25 days to sell. You can always tell the homes in this price range are selling fast. There's no time to waste. Let's identify only the homes that are a very close match to what you're looking for and tour them as soon as possible so you can make an offer before somebody else buys it out from under you. And you're building trust. Based on the information you uncover during the pre-consultation, you can customize your presentation to address their wants and needs, ensuring that you're delivering the information they want to hear. What's their motivation? What's their ability to finance and buy it? And how quickly can they do it? What's their experience been? Have they bought and sold other houses? Have they run into any problems? And what are the basics of the property you're looking for, the price and other things that they're looking for? These are all things that we need to know to really help them. And based on the information you uncover during the pre-consultation, you can also customize your presentation to address their wants and needs, ensuring you're delivering the information they want to hear. Some clients really prefer to get physical copies of listings or get physical information they can take with them and study. They want something they can touch and feel during the presentation, and that's fine. Some clients want a soft copy. We might pull up our buyer presentation on a tablet, or on a laptop. Some clients prefer digital copies of everything. We want to send them our home buyer guide. Some clients prefer that their agent is accustomed to working with technology. What I usually start with is a combination. For example, some agents will show available homes online, but explain the process using a printed buyer's guide. You can do a combination of both to really hit all of the different buttons. And you're going to adjust your communication style to build trust. Now, we may do an entire course in the future. I have one online on different types of personality traits. But in addition to learning about their needs, you can use the buyer questionnaire and your interactions to better understand the buyer's behavioral style and tailor your communication accordingly. So understanding these 4 common personality types may help you to deliver a more impactful buyer consultation. There are people who are dominant. They take control. They make decisions quickly. You might hear them say, I've only got an hour and a half today. I don't need a dog and pony show. Or I don't need to see your coloring book. Just explain to me what we're doing. They interrupt you. They speak very directly, very pointedly. What you do to work with someone who's very dominant is you don't need to make small talk. Get right to the point. Don't overwhelm them with data because it's not going to help. They only want to see the bottom line. Then there are people who fall into the influence category. They like relationships, and making new friends is the most important thing, but they're not very analytical. They're not into data. You might hear, oh, this is going to be fun. I've wanted to look at properties, or I want to work with someone I know. They're enthusiastic, they're positive. So and they speak loud and fast very often. Your approach is to know the details about them and establish a relationship with them, and then keep them focused on the transaction. You might have people that are steadiness. They like to belong and they create strong connections. They might ask for confirmations. What do you think about this? They're looking for confirmation of decisions. The way you respond to them is by asking them questions. Make them part of the decision-making process. And then you have people who are conscientious. They analyze every possibility before making a decision. They like all the facts, they like all the details, and they like lots and lots of information. Well, what if, I looked this up on Google already. Well, Zillow says this. They'll ask for more and more data. They may have a lot of information themselves. Asking their opinion is often beneficial. You can't provide them with too much data or too much information. That's the type of person that they might be. The National Association of Realtors states that 94% of buyers consider knowledge of the home buying process very important. This is your opportunity to demonstrate how the services you provide can guide them through the process and guide them through the process. The buyer's guide that you'll have to work with buyers is your most powerful tool to walk buyers through your home buying process while explaining the value you bring at each stage. Using the guide will demonstrate your level of preparation, and after the consultation, it'll serve as a reference to keep buyers on track. And then goal 3 is to define our services. The 2020 National Association of Realtors research shows that an average of only 7% of buyers contacted a lender during their first steps to home buying process. They just start looking. You should not proceed until you've covered this step. Pre-qualification is the first step in the mortgage process. Based on the client's financial information, the lender gives a pre-qualified mortgage amount. And pre-qualification does not include an in-depth financial analysis. A pre-approval, once it's complete, of the mortgage application and the necessary documentation is when the lender does a financial background. They do a credit check to really approve the buyer for a specific mortgage amount pending getting an appraisal done on the house. So your script might be, as part of my service, I can provide a list of 3 lenders who can help you. I would hate for you to start looking at homes, fall in love with that one perfect house, and then lose it because the buyer that you're competing with was pre-approved, or because you didn't get a pre-approved for that amount, or the seller accepted an offer from another buyer who was pre-approved. Or the other way you might say it is, in this market, we can't even consider submitting an offer without a pre-approval letter unless we want to be rejected. It's just the way things are right now. Communication with buyers is not necessarily as systematic as it has to be with sellers. Your buyers are going to want to reach out as soon as they see a property they like, or to add a property to the list of homes you're touring on an appointment day. I can't tell you how often you've got 5 houses set up and they call and say, "Can we see this one too?" And we're meeting them in 10 minutes. You'll want to contact them again if you see a perfect match or a close match to what they're looking for as well. You want to explain to them on this presentation, you've got to explain a few things to them. And if you don't explain this, it will come back to bite you and cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. I can't stress this enough. For sell by owners, FSBOs. If they find a for sale by owner, ask that they contact you first. You will call the for sale by owner to request a showing and negotiate commission. Protect your time and stay safe by allowing me to assess the potential and credibility of the owner. That's what you can tell someone. Protect your time and stay safe by allowing me to assess the potential and credibility of the owner. Open houses. As soon as the buyer enters an open house without you, ask them to present your card, your business card, immediately. You don't want to deal with all the follow-up calls. I will protect you from the hassle. And you want somebody representing you, not the person who's representing the owner of the house. And new construction, we've lost so many deals to a developer who said, "Well, you didn't bring them the first time." As soon as a buyer enters a new development without you, ask them to present your business card immediately and don't sign anything unless I'm present. Do not fill out the form to go in. Don't even sign in. Those agents that are sitting in that new construction represent the developer and cannot protect your interests like I can or negotiate on your behalf. And frankly, you're not going to get a better deal going directly to a builder. It never happens. So that brings us back to earning the business and closing for that buyer representation agreement or that buyer agency agreement. And the buyer agency agreement, which is in zip forms, is a legal document that formalizes your working relationship with the buyer. It allows you to fully represent them as your client and protects you from the buyer purchasing through other means. With a signed buyer representation agreement or buyer agency agreement, you can better represent your client's best interest. You know that the time you invest in your clients is the best chance to lead to a financial reward for you. Now, a lot of agents won't do it. They think they're pushing somebody to sign something when they don't have to. They have fear that they're going to scare the buyers away. Many agents excuse their fear of asking for the agreement by saying, "I don't want to take the risk by asking for something I'm not going to enforce anyway. I'm not taking a buyer to court if they don't want to work with me anymore." Now, honestly, I've said the same thing. Of course, if your buyer isn't satisfied with your service, you're probably not going to sue them for the buyer agency fee. Let me be honest. You don't want to harm your reputation by going out and suing people if they go around you and buy something at an open house or buy for sale by owner. However, your buyers are asking for a commitment of your professional time and effort, and you can put a lot of time and effort into a buyer. Asking for a commitment from them should be a natural conclusion of sharing with them the value of working with you. So here's a sample script. Right now, you don't have any representation. If you sign a buyer agency agreement with me as your agent, you can be assured of someone looking out for your interests. My responsibility would be to protect your interests without any conflict. Can you see how it'd be beneficial to have a professional working for you to find you the best home and negotiate on your behalf to get the best possible terms? This form that I'm going to hand you is one that helps you, that allows me to represent you in your home purchase. Otherwise, whoever you're working with technically is representing the seller. Now, you might hear questions like, or responses or objections like, I don't want to get locked into an agreement. If you're unsure about signing this agreement, it usually means I haven't answered all your questions or there's something we haven't touched on. Is there something more we can discuss? I can't be 100% committed to you unless you're 100% committed to me representing your best interests. So without this agreement, I technically represent the seller and cannot share anything I learn that could help us when negotiating for a property, a divorce, for example. I understand let me back up and say that again, actually, before I go any further. If I'm not representing someone as a buyer agent, if I don't have that buyer agency representation agreement, then technically in this state and the states that we work in, you become what's called a subagent for the seller. What that means is if you're not representing the buyer, you're supposed to be working in the seller's interest. So if the seller is selling because they have to get it sold before they go to foreclosure or because they're in the middle of a divorce, we're not actually allowed to share that. Even if it's listed by somebody else can have the listing. I can be showing the property, but if I'm not representing that buyer, then technically I'm representing the seller. So I want to be able to share anything with the buyer and work in their best interest, but I'm supposed to, by law, have something in writing first. So again, without a buyer agency agreement, I technically represent the seller, and I can't share anything I learn that could help us when negotiating for the property, like a divorce, for example, or the fact that they may be behind on their mortgage. I understand your hesitation. If for some reason it came to be that you didn't want to work with me, then I wouldn't have a problem ending our agreement. How does that sound? The other thing you might hear is, I want to work with several agents so I can get the best deal. That one kills me because if you're working with 10 agents, of course, none of them, if you're not loyal to them and they know it, none of them are going to work really hard to find them a house because they're going to be loyal to the people who are loyal to them. The response might be, I completely understand wanting to work with other agents. I represent my buyers in order to provide the service, the time, and the attention that it takes to find and close on the home of their dreams. And I can show you any home on the market, no matter who has the listing. So doesn't it make more sense to work with a professional who's committed to you, to giving you the time and the attention that you need? If you give me the right to represent you, I can work for you to get the best deal. And that's really what you want, right? The best deal. So then you set up the next steps. If they need to be pre-approved, again, suggest multiple lenders. They can contact if they don't already have one. Show them homes you bookmark that might meet their needs and ask for their feedback. And if there's a home sale involved, if they have to sell their home before buying, ask to complete a CMA for them, a market analysis for them, and set up a listing presentation. And then ask them if they have any questions. Set the stage to be ready to ask for referrals when it's appropriate. And where we're going to go from here, when you're meeting with a buyer to go over buyer agency and representing them, it's helpful to have a whole package of information ready to give them, to show them everything they need to know for the buying process. Some of the suggestions on this slide include a copy of what a sales contract looks like, because they really want to know. Information on agency relationships, a consumer notice, what title insurance rates are. You can work with your manager to start putting together your own personal buyer package. You may want a resume on yourself. You may want a value proposition on yourself and on Century 21 Kime. But put together a package that you're going to be able to give a buyer when they first come in. That's very important to do. You might even get some information from your preferred lenders you might include as well. Let's get down to business. If you don't have enough buyers to work with, you may have to start searching for some. There are plenty of buyers in the marketplace. You can start by creating a contact list of those you're going to call. And you can follow our sample scripts over the next few minutes and start dialing. Now, we've been talking for the last few weeks in Quick Start on building a contact list and reaching out to your sphere of influence. There are lots of people that you can reach out to try and find potential buyers to market. You might call people in your sphere of influence, your social network, people who like and trust you. Hey, James, this is Bill. How are you? What have you been up to? Hey, I'm great. That's if you haven't caught up to somebody in a while. Hey, Bill, this is James. We haven't spoken in a while, and I just want to check in and see if I could be of any help to you for real estate needs, or if you'd be interested in a market activity update for your area. I'd be happy to provide you what's happening in the marketplace. Do you have any questions or need any help right now? I can help you with that. I'll get back to you if they have something. If they don't have anything, no, I'm not planning on moving. I'm staying here until they take me out of here in a box. Okay. Well, I look forward to keeping you updated on the local market. If there's anything you need, please reach out to me. And by the way, do you know of anyone who's thinking about moving? Houses are flying off the market right now, and buyers need an expert if they're going to be making an offer that'll get accepted. And by the way, very often when you're saying this to someone, they will know somebody who's thinking about buying. Oh, great. Do you have their contact info? I'd love to reach out to them. Anybody else? Do you know anybody who's changing jobs or graduating or getting married or having a baby? Can I use your name? It'd be a privilege to take care of anyone who's a friend or acquaintance of yours. I'll let you know if they decide to use me as an agent. And if anybody else comes to mind, please let me know. If they don't have anybody they know, okay, I appreciate you giving it some thought. Again, if you know of anyone, people are changing jobs, graduating, getting married, please let me know. I'd really appreciate it. And by the way, if you call a friend or relative or past coworker and they don't answer, it never hurts to send them a text. Text messages are a wonderful form of communication that people respond to. Hey, just want to say hi. How are you? I'd like to catch up. Call me when you're free. It's a great way to touch base with someone. There's also what we call circle prospecting. Hi, my name's Lauren. I'm a real estate agent affiliated with Central 21 Keim Realtors. I've got some good news to share about the neighborhood. A home down the street from you just sold with multiple offers. And now we have 37 buyers, I might be exaggerating that a little bit, who still want to buy a home in the neighborhood. I'm just checking to see if you know of anybody in the area thinking of moving. I'd like to share how I help buyers find their dream home. Now, by the way, this what we're calling here circle prospecting or just sold calling. We've had agents, so few agents will pick up the phone and blindly cold call a neighborhood, but I cannot tell you how many agents have called around a neighborhood where we've recently sold a property because the listing agent is probably not going to do it, and picked up listings from just calling around the neighborhood to let them know that a house sold. It's a great way of building business when you need business, something that you can absolutely do. Calling a referral, somebody who was referred to you. If Bill sent us a referral for somebody who is thinking about buying. Hi, Sally. This is Lauren. I'm a real estate agent with Central 21 Keim. Bill gave me your number and asked me to speak with you about your upcoming real estate needs. Bill told me that you're looking to buy a property or invest in property or rent a property. Just wanted to see if I could help. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for? Okay, great. I'd love to help you with that. I can see you tomorrow at 5 if you're free, or this weekend, which is better for you. And then, of course, you can always ask the same thing again. Do you know anybody else who's interested in buying or selling real estate? Anybody who's changing jobs, graduating from school, getting married, having a baby, whatever you want to say. Thank you for taking a moment to think about that. I'd like to repay the favor. I share updates with our friends, family, and past clients to keep them informed of the market. I'd be happy to do the same for you. If I can get your email address, I will follow up with you with what is happening in your neighborhood and your market. And by the way, there's a great tool in Zap that allows you to put in someone's address, and it will give them an update regularly on any new listings in their neighborhood or any new sales in their neighborhood. And they absolutely love it. And it brings them back to you. It comes from you, it brings them back to you. And you're keeping them informed of what's happening in their neighborhood and their market. And again, if they don't answer, you can send a text. Hi, this is Lauren Keim. I'm a real estate agent affiliated with Central 21 Keim. Bill Patterson suggested that I give you a call because you're thinking about moving soon. Any chance you're available to meet this afternoon or tomorrow to go over your needs? That might be a way to text them. And then jot down any information you can to use later. Always have a spreadsheet, a tablet, a notes where you can write down who you've talked to and who you need to follow up with. The key in this business is follow-up. It isn't making that first call, because very often we have to call someone 3, 4, or 5 times, and ultimately they do work with us and they send us a lot of business. But the follow-up is what's key in this entire industry to get to that point of follow-up. And by the way, you can also track your results online to see how you're doing. If you log into 21 Online and then go to Century 21 University, Select the RE scoreboard, real estate scoreboard, from the navigation choices on the left-hand side of the screen over here on Central 21 University, and select that you already know your goals, and under edit those goals, which is down here, find an activity that you want to update and use a plus or minus sign to input the correct number of that activity. You can keep track of how you're doing. And by the way, you can track this over time to see how you're keeping up with the numbers that you want to keep up with. Again, track your goals. It'll keep you up to date on how you're doing. And remember, this is just like weight loss. Everything you track is more likely to get done. Just hoping something happens is not the way to make a great living in real estate. Step 3 is to find and show houses. And again, while your goal is to put your buyers into their dream home, you also want to help them without wasting some of your valuable time and resources. So you want to show them only the homes they're likely to buy. In other words, you want to show them the fewest homes in the shortest amount of time. You are helping them. You're trying to find them the best property, but you don't want to be wasting a lot of time showing them properties that are not in their best interest. So top agents have scripts, tactics, and tools in place to leverage their in-depth knowledge of their buyers' wants and needs, and the legwork their buyers can do to reduce the time it takes to find and show homes. So we try and get the buyers engaged, leverage some of our tools. We focus the tour by prioritizing tools, but by prioritizing homes. We show homes with intention. We show them like a pro, and then we get our offer accepted. Those are the next steps. So goal 1 is to get the buyer engaged. Today, the buyer wants to be more involved in the home search than ever before. So before you go on showings with them, give your buyers the tools and the freedom to narrow down the search so that you're only touring the homes that you have been thoroughly researched. The last thing you want to do is take your buyers to dozens of homes that don't meet their criteria. I cannot tell you how many of our agents have taken a buyer out to look at properties. They pulled in the driveway and the buyer looked up and said, "Oh, no, I don't even want to go in." And then the agent has to go in and make an apology and say, "I'm sorry, this buyer won't even come in your house." Don't waste your time doing that. They should have some preview of it ahead of time. So provide the buyer with access to all the MLS listing system properties. Set up an automated email alert system that immediately notifies buyers of properties that fit their criteria. And our back-end system notifies them within minutes of them coming on the market. And we'll go through that in another video that you're going to have. Tell your buyers to take the virtual tours if available, and leverage Google Street View to see if they like the street. And ask the buyers to drive by any homes or neighborhoods they're interested in before you tour them. If they aren't in gated communities where they can't go without an agent, there are several areas that we service where there are gated communities they physically can't get there. But save yourself unnecessary visits to homes that buyers may rule out after seeing them in person. Yeah, a script might be, when you see a property that interests you online, it's a process of elimination to determine if it's something we should invest your time in. First, take the virtual tour. If you like it, great. Go on Google Street View and do a 360-degree view of the street. Does it reveal any issues? Does it have a helipad next door, or do you have railroad tracks in the back? And if it looks good, next, if you can, check out the neighborhood on your lunch break or on your way home to work and confirm you like the area. And if you do, great, call me, we'll go see it, we'll set it up and get in as quick as we can. Our goal, though, is to only see the right homes together so that when we find that one, we can act quickly, we can jump on it as quickly as possible. And you have to know when to adjust the search. Buyers are not real estate experts. You're the expert. As you listen to what buyers are saying, suggest alternatives, such as neighborhoods or different floor plans. Especially, we can tie this to what you've learned about their needs and motivations from the buyer questionnaire. And depending on the availability of inventory in your market, you may set a range a bit outside of the price range established by the buyer and their loan officer. Very often they stretch a little bit to find the perfect property. If you make your search parameters too strict, you might miss a home that is close to the buyer's range and perhaps improperly priced or open to negotiations. Maybe go 5%, or in higher price ranges, even 10% above what their target price is. And a buyer that wants to see too many homes is a clear sign that either they're not clear on what they're looking for, or they have not applied that criteria well enough to the homes that they're looking at. They look too broadly. I have to try and keep that tour focused if humanly possible, and prioritize the homes. We previously discussed knowing when to adjust your buyer search criteria. Once your buyer's clear about what they're looking for, you should set the expectation about how many homes you're going to tour and ask them to prioritize properties. So, John and Sally, during our tour on Saturday from noon until 4 p.m., we're going to visit 4 houses. And I found that trying to see more than 4 at any one time on a tour can make it harder to remember the crucial details. And also, if we're spending time in homes that don't really fit your criteria, it can mean that some other buyer's writing an offer in your dream home, and we don't want to risk that. We want to focus on what is going to really work for you. As you find homes, I'm going to ask you to prioritize them in order of preference to see which homes make the cut and which ones we may want to potentially visit later. Your time is precious, and so is your client's time. The best agents plan for a tour that ends with an offer. While your goal is not to sell any particular home, your goal is also to help the buyer to make good decisions. Take your sales hat off and put on your consulting hat to make sure they don't miss out on their dream home. And show homes with intention, get the inside scoop. One of the ways that you can save time and also set yourself up for a successful negotiation is by doing a little reconnaissance on a property the buyer wants to see by speaking with the listing agent. Call the listing agent to schedule a tour as far in advance as possible so that you can get your preferred showing time. And you might ask questions like, what can you tell me about the property? Is there a reason the sellers are selling? How soon do they need to sell? And on what comparables did they base their price? By the way, when you ask these questions, some agents will go a little insane. And the other thing is they don't have to tell you this, and they're not supposed to tell you their motivation. But it certainly helps to try and get as much information as you can. Goal number 3 is to show homes with intention. Again, maximize your efficiency. Schedule showings for simplicity and speed. Make the most of your showing time by using your navigation system for the most direct route to each home. Actually, most of the MLS systems we belong to are going to allow you to lay out a map of them, and you can try and route them the right way. You're the neighborhood expert, so you'll need to know how to get to each home. And while agents often prioritize the order of the homes based on geographic efficiency, some top agents pay special attention to the order of which they show a home that has the potential to be the one. Something I'm often asked is, in what order do you show homes when you think one of them might be that perfect house? Your intention is to get an offer. Every decision you make should be based on whether or not it'll help you to get that offer. Showing that perfect house first, sorry, I went a little too far ahead, could end the tour with an offer right then. You might show that house first, they might make an offer. But more likely, they'll keep looking, and we don't want that to happen. So showing it last, by comparing it to all the other homes they saw, they'll know it's the best one, they should make an offer. But you can do it either way. I've seen agents do both. And you might prepare a house hunting folder. Give your buyers everything they're going to need to make a purchase decision by the end of your tour. You might choose to put together a house hunting folder for your buyers, create a folder of information on each home you're showing, and your folder may include a printed house hunting checklist, again, something that we have in our workbook. Buyers can use it to take notes on all the homes they look at. Encourage them to assign their own names for homes they're interested in for better recall later. Have MLS printouts for each home, including the property information sheet and seller's disclosure you can print ahead of time. If there's a homeowners association, you can try and print those, although sometimes documents are quite large. You might have maps of each home or directions, and relevant reports or specific information of interest about neighborhoods or areas the homes are in. There are some agents who even prepare market analyses, CMAs, on all the homes they tour, along with property reports to provide a detailed snapshot of the property in the neighborhood. It takes a lot of time, but there are agents who do that. Again, in your quick start guide, you'll find a house hunting checklist that you can duplicate and give your clients so they can write down the positive and negative aspects and keep notes as they're going through the houses, try and figure out what'll work for them. And here are a few tips from some professional buyer agents. Look for subtle signs. When buyers discuss where their furniture might go, it can be an obvious sign they like the property. Sometimes, or hey, this is going to be Jake's room. Sometimes the signs are more subtle. As you're showing homes to your buyers, watch their body language and their expressions. And institute a just say no policy. Let your buyers know that it's okay to say no to a home. We can walk through the first floor of a house and they hate it. You can leave right then. You don't have to walk through the whole house. It could be as soon as you hand them the home tour package, when they're in the neighborhood, or when you pull up in the driveway, or even when they just walk inside the house. If they want to move on, it's going to save you time by not showing them a house that you know is they're never going to buy. So be sure to cancel the showing if you're not going to see the home, as a professional courtesy to the listing agent, but don't waste your time. And also institute a just say yes policy. Let your buyer know that every home you will ask them if they want to make an offer. If they're excited or they're in love, they shouldn't hesitate to move forward. You might say, Carol, in this hot market, if we find a home you like, it's important to realize that someone who just saw the home previously 2 hours ago might be writing an offer right now. When we find that perfect house, let's be ready to make an offer so we don't lose out. Call ahead. Be sure that the current owners are out of the home if humanly possible. You never know when someone's plan has changed or their home. Monitor your words and actions. Assume that you are being recorded everywhere. Today's home audio and video technology is scary. It can capture your every move. I can't tell you how often we've been recorded, or how many clients where I've gone to present an offer, and the seller looks at me smugly and says, yeah, they were standing outside the porch on the Ring doorbell, and they said they're going to offer this, but they would pay full price. Uh-oh. Remind your buyers to avoid discussing anything that could potentially compromise negotiations while they're in the home. And keep buyers focused. Sometimes you can easily replace or change items. A house might have weird colored walls or outdated carpet, and that can be distracting to buyers, so they overlook the positives of a property. So even excessively cluttered homes or dirty homes, when buyers push back about a home being odd colors or need something, refocus their attention on the options, because it may end up being the best house for the buyers. John and Sally, I can understand why you'd say that. Aside from the changeable cosmetics, how do you feel about the underlying features of the home? And if they really like it, would you want me to make an offer if we were able to add a provision for the seller to replace the carpet in the entire first floor with something more to your taste? It may take a little imagination to look past the 127 collectible Elvis plates, but can you see your family and furniture in this space? And leave it as you found it. Be sure to leave the home exactly as you found it. Close any doors that were closed, and make sure all the exterior doors are locked and the home secure. Please make sure you lock up a house when you leave. Do not let anything open or unlocked. And give feedback to listing agents. It's customary to provide showing feedback to the listing agent. You may receive an email from showing time, or a call asking you how the showing turned out. If it can build great rapport with the co-brokering agent to proactively provide feedback, even if your buyers don't want the property, you will likely work with those agents in the future. And of course, be sure you're not giving information that may compromise your buyer's confidentiality or the ability to negotiate terms of a purchase if they're interested in the property. And you can help them decide. Although you're not trying to sell your clients on a given home, your goal is to help them come to a purchase decision once they found a home they like. When I first started in the real estate business in 1927, and taking a horse to the office, I'm kidding, of course. The one agent in the office was named Krista, and she was a German woman of relocated to the United States. And she had some buyers sitting across from her the first day I was there. And I can never forget this. The buyers were hemming and hawing and saying, we're not sure. We don't know if this is the right house. We don't know if it's perfect for us. We like the payment. We like everything about it, but I just don't know if it's right. We may want to think about it a week. And Krista had already prepared an agreement of sale, an old carbon agreement of sales. And she turned the paper around and she said, I just signed a paper. And I stopped and I said, you can't do that. And Krista said, they want the house. It's in their best interest. And she got them to sign the paper. And I was horrified. And I got to tell you, the buyer came back the next day and thanked her so much. They got the house. Now, I'm not saying ever to pressure a buyer into doing anything at all. You should not do that. But sometimes buyers have trouble making it over that last step, over that hurdle. So after each home tour, you may ask the buyer to openly discuss their thoughts and compare it to other homes you visited. Let them know that you value their candid feedback to better narrow down the search and zero in on the perfect property. And if this property is right, be prepared to write an offer. And if it's not, discuss what they liked, discuss what they didn't like about the properties you visited. If you have truly done your homework and yet none of the homes are a match, it may be that you need to reconfigure your search parameters. And if you're not really certain what's going wrong, probe with great questions. When they find the right house, make sure the buyers receive and review the seller's property disclosure statement. You have to do that prior to writing an offer. And hopefully the disclosure will be available to download on the MLS. If it's not, you're going to have to call the listing agent and obtain a copy from the listing agent. And when your buyer's ready to make that offer, make it count. You've worked hard to help them find the home they like. By the way, if they don't get the house, too often they blame you. If you find out what's important to the seller, you can shape an offer that's more likely to be accepted. Although the listing agent may not answer every question you'd like, you won't know until you ask. So contact the listing agent and be ready to ask the right questions. Do you have any offers on the property currently? Where are your sellers moving? What's the time frame they need to be there? How many offers have you received? Are there reasons that any other offers didn't work? Is there anything that's important to your seller in this transaction? Determine how they like the offer delivered and ask them to verify when they received it. Make sure they got the offer. I've had situations where we submitted an offer to someone and the agent didn't see it and had something else signed. And while the buyer ultimately determines the offer they want to make on the home, you can advise them on all the elements of an offer and how to put together the best offer for the sellers. Consider contingencies and other terms. See, in addition to the offer price, your buyer may have terms that they need to be accounted for in the offer, unless you're in a high demand market where these types of requests are not usual. Besides any necessary contingencies, like being contingent on the sale of their current home, your buyer may have additional requests like a longer or shorter settlement date. They may ask us to leave something specific like custom furniture or appliances. They may request certain repairs to be made prior to settlement. They make it contingent on an appraisal and on a home inspection, termite inspection, radon inspection, well and septic inspection. And they may even ask for the seller to pay some of their closing costs. These are all contingencies that might be put on an agreement of sale. But those contingencies might cost them the sale. And this is something you have to weigh, because you have to understand what's in the best interest of your buyers, because you're working for the buyer in this case. But you don't want them to lose the perfect house either. So I can appreciate why you'd want to ask for that. In our market, it's not customary for the seller to give $26,000 in seller assist or grant so many requests. Considering all the homes we've looked at that didn't give you what you wanted, I'm concerned for your offer because of all that we're asking the seller for. Unfortunately, no is not the worst that they can say to each of these requests. They can simply reject the offer completely, or worse, another offer can come in and they can take that other offer and then kick us out. So let me ask you, if the seller took another offer and we lost this home because you didn't get the carpet replaced in the family room, how would you feel? Would you rather handle that yourself and increase your chances of getting the home? It really depends on the market you're in, if it's in a hot market or a soft market, what you can and can't do. But you have to make sure that you're similar to other offers going in, or you will likely lose that perfect property for the buyers. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to explain to them what the reality is of the marketplace at any given point in time. And making an offer on a home leads to excitement along with anxiety for your buyers. The goal is to aim for the perfect dollar amount. Top agents use market conditions and information that they gather on a seller's home to complete a CMA, a competitive market analysis. When it comes to consulting your buyer on the offer price, remind them that they're in a stronger position if it's a cash offer, or if the buyer has a formal written pre-approval, or if the buyer has neither a home that has to be sold in order to afford the home or too many other terms. When we're in a competitive situation, the buyer is paying cash with no inspections and a settlement date at the leisure of the seller, is usually going to get the house. If we're in a very slow market and you're the only offer, we might have some more latitude in what you can ask the seller to do. But once the buyer has all the facts, share what they might want to consider if they're thinking of going too high or too low. And then when to go high and when not to go low. So when we don't want to go high, in a fast-paced market where multiple offers are the norm, And knowing your buyers have an urgent need, such as having to relocate in time for the new job, counsel them to make an offer that's going to stand out financially. Your script might be to be, sorry, your script might be to be sure another buyer doesn't get your home. What's the highest you're willing to pay for it? And once they give you that number, you can ask, if we offer 340,000 and we get a counter offer, do you want to go higher to avoid losing it? How much higher would you go? Should we submit that as our best offer? Then if they don't accept it, you'll have fewer regrets. You'll know that you did everything you could to get that home. And now, when not to go low, when your buyers want to lowball and your CMA and the market conditions don't match their motivation, counsel them on the very real risks of losing the home that they really want if they're outbid or the sellers are so offended they won't even entertain the offer. I can tell you I've had at least 24 situations over the years where we had a buyer who absolutely wanted to go in low because that's the way they were. And the seller rejected the offer and was offended. And the buyer was willing to pay more. But even though the buyer was willing to pay more, the seller sold it to somebody who offered less because they were still mad at the low offer the buyer originally made. You have to be very careful not to offend a seller as well. And a sample script might be the difference between what you're offering and the list price is $25,000. Are you willing to lose that home to another buyer for that amount? Let's write the offer at a price that will let the seller know you're serious about buying the home. What's your top priority? Just getting a low price? Or are you more interested in finding a home that meets your needs? And how will you feel if your offer is rejected and you lose this home? If that thought is upsetting, let's consider making a higher offer. And again, you can always back up to the difference of that $10,000 you want to save is only whatever it comes out to a month, 800 or $127 or whatever it happens to be. And be prepared for multiple offers, particularly in a hot market. But depending on the market, the attractiveness of the sales price and how desirable the property is, you might find yourself in a multiple offer situation. You have to brief your buyer on the market factors that are likely to come into play. When housing inventory is particularly low, competition for properties tends to be higher than normal. It's supply and demand. Explain the concept of best and highest. This means we'll want to put our best foot forward in both price and contingencies. We're only going to get one shot at this because they're looking at multiple offers at the same time and they're going to pick one. We'll look at the current contract and identify areas where you feel comfortable submitting terms that are better positioned to get you that house, to put you in your new home. And explain that the highest price offer is not necessarily the most desirable. Many times, a seller has taken the second highest offer or the third highest offer that had less contingencies. What can matter more is the assurance that the buyer has the funding lined up to ensure the transaction doesn't unravel before getting to the closing table and making it as clean as possible. And when possible, ask your buyer to stipulate in the offer how much money they're willing to bring to the table if the appraisal comes in low. That can provide the seller an additional assurance that your buyer's financing is in order. Oops. And prepare your buyer for all possible responses. They'll be anxious and excited at this point. I got to tell you, buyers make an offer on a house that's $10,000 under list price, and they tell all their friends they bought a house, and the seller hasn't even seen the offer. So we want to explain up front, there's a lot of things that can happen. They can accept the offer, they can counter the offer, they can reject it. If the offer is accepted, then you congratulate the buyer, review the rest of the contract to close process with them, and highlight the value you're going to bring. If the seller instead comes back with a counter, keep in mind that many buyers may expect some back and forth negotiations, but others may use this as an opportunity to back out. They get cold feet, they get buyer's remorse. Counsel them on the advantages of considering any counteroffer from the seller or making another counteroffer themselves, rather than walking away from a home that they determined was the one. And if their offer is rejected, follow up with the listing agent to find out the seller's issue with that offer. Debrief with your buyer. If this is something the buyer is willing to change, counsel them to consider making another offer that'll be more amenable to the seller. If the seller accepted another offer or the gap between what the seller's asking and what your buyers finds tolerable can't be bridged, then it's time to move on. This might be an opportunity, though, to re-educate your buyer on the market and what's realistic, what they'll realistically need to do in order to win the next offer, and counter any discouragement by reviewing their search options and letting them know you are ready to find them an even better property. And I do always try and point out safety first. With a few safety precautions, you can better ensure your well-being while being out on a home tour. Incorporate a safety system with the family office manager and other agents affiliated with the office, and ask the office about recommended safety procedures. Keep updated and practice them at all times. Some of the safety do's, because there have been situations across the country in real estate where something has happened. Some of the safety do's. I went too far ahead. Sorry about that. Always make a photocopy of the buyer's ID. Have one on file. Introduce the buyer to somebody affiliated with the office. Let your whereabouts be known at all times when you're meeting and working with the buyer off-site, so they know where you are. Consider some personal protection, like pepper spray or a loud whistle or horn, and be familiar with office policies for safety information. And put together a code to send family and other agents if you find yourself in an uncomfortable or troubling situation. Have something you can do that will alert someone to help any way they can. And some of the safety don'ts: avoid meeting unknown buyers at an empty home. And if you're driving instead of riding in the buyer's car, let them follow you or meet you there. Avoid letting the buyer get between you and the outside door in a home. And avoid letting couples split up. And avoid going anywhere that makes you feel uncomfortable. Protect yourself before anything else. Please make sure of that. Now, step 4 in our 5-step buyer process is contract to close. With buyers spending more and more time looking for homes on their own and potentially even finding their new home on their own, the contract to close phase is an important component, an important time, because your buyers may not have a full appreciation of everything that you do and all the value you bring yet. You want to make the invisible visible. Show them what you do behind the scenes as you're doing it. Let them know what you're doing every step of the way. That's why top agents know that successfully navigating the contract to close process serves a dual purpose. First and foremost, you want to get the transaction to closing and get paid. But you also want to use this time to demonstrate your value and to cement your relationship with your buyer, because in the long run, you're going to be hoping for referrals from them. And the contract to close period is that time period between the time you sign an agreement of sale and you get to closing and they get the keys, during which the agent has to safeguard the transaction for their buyers. During this phase, you provide a myriad of services your buyers are most likely not even to be aware of, especially if they're first-time home buyers. To you, it's a familiar process, but not to them. When you handle major issues for your buyers, reach out and let them know that. These are some of the things we do. Review the signed contract, go through the inspection process, avoid appraisal issues, finalize the financing, and hopefully finish strong. We've got to get past the inspection phase and negotiate repairs. We've got to avoid appraisal issues and negotiate solutions if the property under appraises. And we have to keep following up the lender to get financing finalized and get everything prepared for closing and have it solidified far in advance so everybody knows when they're moving. So stepping through it, once both parties have signed the agreement, they've all agreed to it, you've got a verified binding contract. Now I want you to go through and make sure everything in that contract is correct. You should have done it already before it was signed. Make sure everything is correct. Make sure the timelines in that contract. Take charge of communications and ensure that all parties are aware of the facts of the deal. Keep in touch with the listing agent, the lender, the title company, and anybody else involved in the transaction, including, of course, your buyer. Set up calendar reminders. I'm not kidding. Whether you're doing it in zip forms or you're doing it in Google Calendar, make sure every relevant deadline, including the closing date, is in your calendar. You want to know when you're supposed to have the approval of the mortgage and when the inspections have to be done and negotiated. You need to have all that spelled out so you don't miss a date. That's critical, because if you do miss a date, if you're too late on doing a reply to inspections, there's a chance the seller will say, no, I'm not doing anything, and you have to buy it now. Once the contract's signed, the inspection represents the next major hurdle. Inspections are the number one reason that properties under contract tend to fall through. Many times because the agents don't properly prepare their clients. Every item on the inspection report is a potential negotiating point. The key is working closely with the listing agent to minimize the risk of the deal falling through. And there are options for any issue. One of the options is that the seller can make repairs themselves. The seller could also provide buyers with a credit for the cost of the repairs, as long as that's okay with the lender, because sometimes it's not. You can provide recommendations for trusted contractors to provide estimates or complete the work at the buyer's expense or the seller's expense for negotiating. And some of the items on the list may not even enter the conversation or may be lumped into a category of minor things not to worry about. I've had a number of buyers over the years look at a list that an inspector comes up with and try and have every single little thing done. Oh, the wires are switched. You have to make them aware ahead of time that every house is going to have issues. You're not buying something brand new. So you can be proactive and check to see if the seller had a pre-inspection performed and would offer a copy of it to the buyers. While the buyers may still want to do their own inspections, at least you'll know about some of the items in advance and you'll have a comparison to point to. Find out if the sellers have or would be willing to offer a home warranty that covers major mechanical issues. This can provide some peace of mind to the buyers who otherwise may not be able to see the forest, which is their dream home, for the trees, which are the repairs. And they might let their fears and concerns get in the way of closing. Now, I had buyers back out over the silliest things. You might have a $400,000 sale and a buyer is arguing over a $500 or $250 repair. You have to look at it rationally. And before the inspection, make sure your buyers understand that inspections always uncover issues. They always have a punch list. That's what they're paid to do. The key is knowing which repairs are important, which ones are vital, and balancing any repair requests within the context of the agreed upon sales price and other terms that seller may have already agreed to. You can influence the outcome of the appraisal. That's the next hurdle to overcome, by being proactive with the listing agent. We've gotten past the inspection phase. We're in the appraisal phase. Provide the appraiser with a market analysis and a list of comparables. Provide a detailed list of the updates and changes to the home, and include any information that's not on the MLS about recent sales that may have been artificially depressed comparable sale property. Like if there's a distressed sale in the neighborhood or a house that had a lot of problems with it, you don't want an appraiser using it on their appraisal report. In a very hot market, consider including a statement on about appraisals in your contract, such as the willingness of a buyer to make up the difference to a certain amount. Again, there are a few things that can sidetrack or take a sale off the tracks. The first one ends up being inspections. The second one ends up being an under appraisal. And we don't have any control over that. We just try and prepare for it ahead of time. Appraisals lower than what the sales contract price is are a reality. If the appraisal comes in lower than the contract price, you have to work together with the listing agent. The sellers might be open to negotiating options that include reducing the sales price. And the buyer may have to consider that they may have to cover a little bit of the difference between the loan amount and the appraisal amount to keep the loan value at the right amount. It depends on how badly they want the house. And once negotiations are complete, the home has been appraised, we've gotten past inspection, financing should be relatively straightforward. Make sure your buyer has an estimate of closing costs from their lender and have a copy of it in the file, and work with your buyer to ensure that all funds are proven and that they're ready to move forward. Some suggestions to confirm the financing. Your buyer's already been pre-approved for financing. This should have been verified and submitted with the offer, but if it hasn't happened yet, help your buyer understand the urgency. The buyer's provided proof of funds in case of a cash purchase. The buyer set aside the proper amount of money for their down payment and closing costs. So you're going to verify, is there anything about the buyer's situation that could cause problems? Like if the buyer's self-employed, or if the buyer has large unverifiable assets or an unstable career or is using a large percentage of gift funds. Those are all red flags that could create a problem, and you've got to stay on top of the lender and make sure everything is going in the right direction. Ask your buyer to work with their lender to remove any issues and communicate to you as soon as they do. And remind your buyer not to make any big purchases. Don't go out and buy a car when you're in the middle of buying a house, because that will impact their credit and it will impact their ability to buy. And we've had buyers who've lost houses because they've made that mistake. Only purchase absolute necessities until the close of the home. Don't buy anything else. And then finish strong. You've worked very hard to get to this point. Finish strong. Work with your buyers, the listing agent, the title company, the lender, and any other parties involved with the closing to complete the transaction. And the buyer's contract to close suggested checklist: submit contract and earnest money on date specified in the contract, finalize, lock down the financing, schedule inspections, negotiate inspection issues if there are any. In some areas, like parts of New Jersey, you may have to schedule a survey, follow up on the appraisal, and remain in touch with your buyers concerning the final closing disclosure. Make sure they receive the final paperwork, the final amount they need, and ask if they have any questions. And remember that they have to have that closing disclosure 3 days prior to settlement. Now, it is something that the lender is going to provide them, but you've got to make sure they have it. And then the last couple of weeks before settlement, 2 weeks before settlement, make sure you've got a time scheduled for closing. Follow up with the title company because they get booked for the end of the month. To an increasing degree, in some markets, buyers and sellers actually close at different times. Some prefer to have all the parties at the same table, but sometimes there are contentious transactions and closing together may be problematic. When that's the case, ask the closing company if they can provide alternate arrangements. Know the title company's policy for distributing funds. Encourage your client to be cautious with providing wire transfer information over email. It's susceptible to fraud. Your buyer may get something in their email that says wire using these instructions. Make sure they confirm it. There are fraudulent emails all over the place now where someone sees that someone's buying a property, sends out something saying to wire the $127,000 to this address, and it's not the right one. They need to call, they need to verify, they need to be talking to somebody before they do it. And be clear that the closing date may change. It's not uncommon to close a few days later than expected, and in some markets, due to financing elements and property types, it could take a few days or once in a while, even a few weeks. And then that final week of closing, schedule and attend a final walkthrough. You're going to do a final walkthrough the buyer after all the repairs are completed. That's usually done the night before or the day of settlement. And closing entails a lot of paperwork. The specifics vary depending on which state we're working in. Learn how long it takes. It may be 45 minutes, it may be an hour, so you can set up that expectation with your buyers. Make sure your buyers get a certified check and verify that the loan will fund on time. Coordinate with the title company on the timelines for those closing disclosures, and with the lender to ensure they'll be ready on time. If they don't have that closing disclosure with the amount of money they need 72 hours before settlement, that delays the settlement. Remind your client they need to bring an official photo ID like their driver's license or passport. And there are a few title companies that require multiple forms of ID. Find this out early in the process so there's time for your client to obtain a new one if it's lost or expired. And again, do a final walkthrough. Most of the time, the buyer does the walkthrough the night before or the morning of closing to ensure the home is still standing and in good repair. And then make sure you're at closing. That's your celebration of buying the property. Top agents have a system in place for thank you gifts. You can think of a lot of great thank you gifts, maybe a home store gift card or a new home gift basket, a bottle of wine, some home essentials, a gift card for a local grocery. Some people do a framed historic photo or painting of their new home, a coffee table book with a personal note inside. Think of something you may want to do to give the buyer at settlement. And then finally, the last step is these hopefully will become clients of yours for life. Past clients who are effective and value added. We want to take that relationship to the next level. We're looking to build clients for life. Past clients who are an effective value added relationship building campaign can become a continuous source of referrals and future business. We want to maintain contact with them over time. We don't want to forget them and move on to the next person. We want to keep in touch. And part of that is asking for referrals. Part of it is leveraging our relationship with them. And part of it is setting a CRM campaign on autopilot. So always let the client do the talking. Create a system that runs on autopilot that'll maintain ongoing communication with your past clients. And again, continue to develop that relationship. We're gonna talk over the next few weeks about building raving fans and about adding value to every relationship in a lot more detail. But for today, just make sure you understand these three things. Number one, ask for referrals. In a recent buyer survey by the National Association of Realtors, Overall, buyers were very satisfied with the real estate agent's skills and qualities when buying a house. They'd use that agent again and recommend him to others, but only if you ask. One of the best ways to ask for referrals is to leverage the law of reciprocity, which describes a sense of obligation that people feel to return a favor or a gift. After they've signed a buyer agency agreement, but before you leave the buyer consultation, you might consider using a script like the one on the screen. My business, John and Sally, is based on word of mouth of my clients. And as you talk about your new home, I'm betting friends and family and coworkers will share with you that they're also thinking about buying and selling. When I do a good job of finding you your dream home and following through on the things that I promised, the things I said I'd do, could I ask that at some point before we leave the closing table that you share with me the information of maybe at least one person you know of who might be considering buying or selling? Thanks for the hard work. Your buyers are now thrilled with your service, and you want to ensure that they're singing your praises with their family, friends, new neighbors. So here are a few things to do after closing. After 7 days, send a thank you note or a gift and remind them that you need referrals. After 2 weeks, offer to help them with any unexpected needs, connecting them with service providers, and ask for referrals. And by the way, we have a concierge service in our firm that helps connect them with services when we need that. After 30 days, just check in with them and make sure they got copies of all the closing documents and ask if they need anything. And after 60 days, send them a seasonal greeting or a home enhancement tip. Just stay in touch with them one way or another. According to Forbes magazine, 81% of customers' purchasing decisions are influenced by their friends' social media posts. And Facebook alone accounts for 80% of all social referrals. It's absolutely incredible, particularly among younger people. So ask your clients to leave reviews on your online platforms and request a review at closing when the buyers are most excited. Oh my God, this is wonderful. It's the best house ever. I loved working with you. You can say back to them, I loved working with you. If you would take a minute or two and review me on Zillow or on any service that you're using, it'd mean a lot to our business. I really want to thank you. And provide the instructions for how to do that. Send a follow-up email reiterating your request from the closing in writing, including a link to where you would like them to post something about you and offer a gift card to incentivize those reviews. And then use your client testimonials in your own materials with their permission. You can even take pictures of your clients in or outside their new home and post those together with their testimonial on your favorite social media channels and in your marketing. You can include captions like, another wonderful buyer, this is why I love real estate, and share their testimonials as part of your buyer consultation. And again, set everything on autopilot. Relationship builder campaigns are a powerful tool that allow you to capture the most business from your past clients with the least amount of effort, ensuring that when they have a real estate need, you're the first person I think of. So after you've closed on the property and are no longer in close contact with the buyers, contact with them should reflect value you can provide as well as your personal connection. So always think of what items of value you can provide. And again, in a few weeks, we'll be talking about building lifetime relationships. But you can ask clients to leave reviews of you online. You can share with them on a regular basis. You can automate this, local market statistics. You can do monthly newsletters, holiday cards, birthday cards, anniversary of home sale cards. You can send them tips on buying and selling. And you can do this maybe monthly. You might send them tips on market updates, and quarterly, you might check in with a phone call. And annually, you might send them an update on the value of their home, because you're trying to build that relationship long term, because each of those people is going to refer you more and more people. And that's going to become the basis of your career in this industry. So again, we always end with homework. So I want to make sure that you make copies of the buyer questionnaire from your Quick Start workbook in preparation for new buyers. I'd like you to go do that this afternoon. I also want you to go into Zip Forms and print out a buyer agency form and fill it out and turn it into your manager. Again, we always have these turned into your manager because what gets checked gets done. I want you to do that because I want you to be aware of everything that's in that form and be able to explain it to somebody without looking like you don't know what you're saying. I also want you to go in and set up an automated home search on the MLS. Send it to yourself, Go into the MLS, set up a search for whatever you're looking for. It doesn't matter if you're not really looking for a house, but I'm looking for a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath colonial in XYZ school district. Set up that automated search to yourself so you get an idea of what's happening in the marketplace and how to set that up quickly. I also want you to go to c21resources.com and watch the very short video on how to host an open house. And then obviously we're looking to help you to find buyers. So I'd like, after you do that, to find an agent in the office and schedule an open house on one of their listings. And again, as always, preview a minimum of 5 homes this week so you get to understand the market, and continue adding 10 people to your contact management system and put them on your e-newsletter. All of those things I want you to get done as quickly as you can, and we'll keep working on our journey towards a successful career in real estate. Thanks again for watching.